sorry, Tony.
You know I wouldn't do this if I had any other choice. But he's my friend. So was I.
Imagine you're a parent and you see both of your kids about to drown. You only have time to save one. Which one do you choose? Difficult choice, right? Well, that's the kind of decision we had to face when we had to choose between our favorite platformers, Super Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie. We're going to be comparing these two games in 7 different categories. These categories will help us discover which game has the best graphics, characters, levels, story, gameplay, replayability, and music. The best game is the game that will win the most categories.
So, grab your favorite kid, sit back, and we'll take a look at today's contenders.
Hello!
Along with Pilot Wings, Super Mario 64 was the launch game for Nintendo's new console and blazed the trail for all other platformers to follow. It featured many of the classic Mario characters, now brought to life in 3 dimensions. From the creative worlds to the unique characters and all the unexpected Easter eggs, Super Mario 64 is definitely super. It was certainly the best-selling game for the Nintendo 64. To say it was a hit with fans and critics alike would be an understatement. Some even regard it to be the greatest game ever made.
Banjo-Kazooie was Rareware's musical masterpiece that had all the charm of a fairy tale, with all the fun and challenge that you'd expect of any great game. There were things to collect, exotic locations to visit, colorful characters to meet, and a real drive to get to the top of the witch's lair. In an era where platformers reigned supreme, a game had to prove itself to stand above all the others, and Rareware certainly lived up to their title as Nintendo's Golden Boys with this classic gem.
The graphics for Mario 64 are really impressive, especially considering it's one of the first 64 games ever made. Games that were released even years later still didn't have the crisp and clear graphics of Mario 64.
Yeah, Mario's may not be bad, but it was still made as a launch title game. Banjo-Kazooie came out 2 years after Mario 64 did, and that was made when they knew what the 64 was capable of. The worlds look crisper, and everything has more detail in it. The characters even have more animations to them to make them seem more alive, and the graphics really help complement the overall look and feel of the game.
Okay, even though Mario's were great for the time, they were still coming out of a 2D era, and some of the graphics were still 2D, like the spiny enemies and even some of the trees. So as good as Mario's graphics were, we've got to give the first point to Banjo. Besides, I think Mario 64 wouldn't be as good with higher definition graphics. Toad just doesn't look as good in HD.
Mamma mia!
Okay, I gave you the point for graphics, but Mario 64 has to win the characters point. I mean, it stars Mr. Nintendo himself, Mario, or whatever his last name is. Plus you've got Peach, Bowser, Toad, even Yoshi makes an appearance. These are all classic Nintendo characters that everybody loves. What does Banjo-Kazooie have, huh? A bear that was in Diddy Kong Racing, and that's it.
Well, yeah, Banjo wasn't in much, and he certainly doesn't have the legacy Mario has, but that's not really Banjo-Kazooie's fault. Banjo was meant to star in his own game, and he and all his friends are way more developed than Mario. The sarcastic banter between Banjo-Kazooie and Bottles really helps to establish their own strong personalities, and even supporting characters have their own quirks, personality types, and voice. And what does Mario have to say? Let's go! Like a lot.
Well, sure, Mario doesn't say much, but he doesn't have to. You know who he is, and he's got a list of games he's starred in to prove it.
If we were comparing series, then yeah, Mario might win, but we're just looking at these two games by themselves. When you take Mario's legacy out of the picture, the answer to which game has better characters becomes clear. This is especially apparent when looking at the game's two villains, Bowser and Grunty. Bowser's evil, but just in a generic way. Why is he evil? What's he want? Why does he hate Mario so much? There isn't any depth to his personality other than he is a bad guy. Grunty, on the other hand, is evil in her own way, and she's obviously vain because she wants to be thin and pretty. She has a reason for doing what she's doing, and she mocks Banjo and Kazooie constantly. Plus, she rhymes with everything she says. So Banjo takes the character's point as well. Banjo has to win in levels because they're all bigger and feel more complete than Mario's worlds. No level feels like a cop-out or just like they were dropping it in real quick. Each part of the world feels like it belongs there and fits with the overall theme. Bigger and higher quality worlds should win Banjo-Kazooie the point on this one as well.
Not so fast. There are far more Mario worlds. There's only 9 worlds in Banjo-Kazooie. Super Mario 64 has 15 regular courses, plus 3 different Road to Bowser courses, which are levels in themselves, and then there's all the hidden courses, like this one. In total, that's more than 20 Mario courses, compared to Banjo's paltry 9. And every Banjo course is not necessarily better than Mario's. Mumbo's Mountain isn't exactly the best in the game, and don't get me started on all the problems with Rusty Bucket.
Yeah, but just because Mario 64 has more levels, that doesn't make them better. Banjo-Kazooie's levels are themed a lot better than Mario's. The question isn't about which game has more levels, just which game has the best levels.
True, but even when Banjo-Kazooie has a better level, it's a close one. Take for example Gobi's Valley against Shifting Sandland. They're both great levels. Gobi's Valley might be a little bit bigger and have a little bit more to do, but it's a close one. But then you've got Hazy Maze Cave in Mario 64, another fantastic level, and Banjo-Kazooie has no answer. Besides, Mario 64's levels also do a better job of exploring cool ideas, like Tiny Huge Island, where you can enter the world as a giant or tiny Mario, or Wet Dry World, where the water level changes depending on how high you jump into the painting. Mario's levels are more creative. Where Banjo-Kazooie just focuses on theming the worlds as best they can, Mario 64 is exploring new ideas and creating really unique courses. Mario 64 has to win the level category. They're just more creative and there's a lot more of them.
Here we go!
Super Mario 64's story is a lot like the other Mario games. Bowser kidnapped Peach, so Mario has to travel through different worlds to finally defeat the Koopa King and save the princess. But Mario 64 does add a few new twists. This time, instead of going through the worlds as fast as you can, you visit each one and explore it to find the Power Stars. Jumping into the paintings was a creative idea for Mario to get to each world, and you finally get to explore the giant Mushroom Kingdom Palace. It's far from a Metal Gear Solid storyline, but it's still a fresh take on a classic story that's fun to play.
Mario's story may be a time-weathered classic, but it isn't really dressed up in a creative way. If you stripped it down to the basics, it would just be, man save girl who kidnapped, must collect things and beat bad guy. Now there isn't really anything wrong with that, those kinds of games can be a lot of fun, but Banjo does something similar, yet in a much more creative way. Banjo's trying to save his sister from a witch, who, I'm guessing he never really had any previous problems with her because he lives like 50 feet from her tower. But anyways, the characters are much more fleshed out to help drive the story, and there's an actual reason for why the witch needs Tooty. Why does Bowser want Peach again?
Fair point. We don't really know why he wants Peach. Although, I do remember the first time I played Super Mario Sunshine, the platform game following Super Mario 64. I clearly remember when Bowser Jr. refers to Peach as Mama Peach. What? In that moment, my childhood innocence was set ablaze. Now sure, Bowser eventually tells his son that Peach isn't his mother, but they wait till the end of the game to reveal this for some reason. So you play through the entirety of Super Mario Sunshine thinking that Bowser actually got Peach pregnant during the events of Super Mario 64. Why, Miyamoto? Why would you do this?
Anyways, Banjo-Kazooie is made like a storybook, so the story is obviously a lot stronger. And like we said before, the characters all have much clearer motivations for why they're doing what they're doing, and there is way more dialogue between the characters to help move the story along. Grunty wants to kidnap Tooty for her looks, like something you'd read in a fairy tale, while Bowser wants to kidnap Peach for, undefined reasons.
Mario games are known for having tight and easy to learn controls. Mario 64 continues this trend while adding tons of new abilities like backflips and long jumps. You can also unlock different colored caps that give you new powers to spice up gameplay even more. The great controls with fun new moves make the gameplay excellent.
I will admit, Mario does have some good moves, but he's a little, basic. Banjo starts off learning all those moves from bottles around Spiral Mountain. Unless you were one of those cool kids who skipped the move intro and all the cutscenes, then asked what was going on. But anyways, Banjo learns so many other moves. Almost all of Banjo's levels have moves for him to learn. Ground pound, shooting eggs, the shock jump, flying, stylish boots, fast feet shoes, all these wonderful moves that you can use on your adventure. Banjo has way more moves than Mario does.
Well, first of all, having more moves doesn't necessarily make the gameplay better. In fact, some moves can make it worse. The invincibility move, for example. Sure, it comes in handy, a little too handy. You can just use it to beat everyone, making games that were supposed to be challenging easy. Banjo's flight ability almost feels like a cheap and easy way to get around levels. Just press A to fly and B to go fast. Mario's flight ability is really more of a glide, so you have to be figuring out momentum, your height to speed ratio, and even the wind currents. It's more challenging and fun to fly around with Mario, rather than just pressing A. Also, Banjo-Kazooie is missing a basic move that would have made the gameplay a lot better: the ledge grab. Mario's ledge grab means you don't have to worry so much about making your jumps, but Banjo's have to be perfect or it's off the ledge with you. Also, Mario 64 just has a smoother flow. This was the first implementation of the wall kicks, a cool ability that's copied by other games to this day. It's why there's way more speedrun players for Mario 64 than Banjo. Banjo-Kazooie just doesn't have a flow like Mario. It has slower controls, a mix of moves that make things a little too easy or unnecessarily difficult. Mario's gotta win the point for gameplay.
Here we go!
Banjo should win replayability though because, well, it's just good. The game is so densely packed, so unless you 100% it on your first way through, there's bound to be something cool you missed. Not only that, but there's a cool feature about the game that comes into play at the end. Throughout the game, you talk to Grunty's nice sister Brentilda, who gives you hints about Grunty's personal life and, well, lack of hygiene. But every time you play through it, it may not be the same. On one file, she may brush her teeth with something like squished slug slime, whereas on a second playthrough, she may brush with something like llama hair toothbrushes. All this is information that you may need to know to beat her trivia game at the end.
Yeah, but the flavor of Grunty's toothpaste doesn't really affect gameplay. Banjo-Kazooie won the point for story, partially because it's heavier on the cutscenes and the character conversations. But with Mario, it's easier and faster to jump right back into the action. With Banjo-Kazooie, if you play the game again, you have to collect the Jiggies pretty much the exact same way you did before. But since Mario's got moves that can build off each other, like the wall kicks and even the slides, you can figure out different ways to collect the same star. We mentioned its popularity among speedrunners before, and this is why. It's just more fun to replay. Glide on a Koopa shell, shoot there in a cannon, or bounce off the walls. So Mario 64's gotta win the replayability point as well. You get back to the action faster, and there's more variety within the game the second or third time around.
Here we go!
So this is the final category and tiebreaker for which game is better. And unfortunately for Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie will win the music category. This game is all about music. I mean, you pick up musical notes from the ground, for crying out loud. This game is based around music, so it should definitely win.
Well, sorry to bust your bubble, but Mario 64 is gonna win this one, and I can prove it. If you look at our last video, the top 50 songs for the N64, Banjo-Kazooie only had one song reach the top 10. Super Mario 64 had two songs in the top 10, the ending credits music and the Jolly Roger Bay theme, and they both ranked higher than Banjo-Kazooie's Freeze Easy Peak. So, according to our own list, Mario 64 has the best music.
But Banjo has so much more music, and we put more of its songs on the list than we did Mario's. Click Clock Wood, Freeze Easy Peak, Treasure Trove Cove, these are all great songs too, and they have variations of themselves in their own levels. Going to a different area, like the basement in Mad Monster Mansion, or changing the seasons in Click Clock Wood will change up the song that you already love and put a cool little twist on it. And Mario tends to reuse some of the songs for different levels, whereas in Banjo, you get a new and fresh song every time.
Well, okay, some of the levels did share the same music, but it's not like Mario is lacking in the music department. There's nothing quite like hearing that file select music to bring on the nostalgia. There isn't a less than stellar track for any of the level music, even if some of it did get reused. And the overworld theme for Peach's Castle ties it all in perfectly. It sounds regal, mysterious, and it never gets old. It's one of the most loved Mario songs of all time.
Yeah, it is pretty good. But if you want to talk about overworld themes, look no further than Grunty's Lair. This place has a great tune just like Peach's Castle, but it changes depending on where you are in the layer. Heading towards Gobi's Valley, the music will start to change and have more of an Egyptian theme. And it does this for all of Banjo's worlds. And while Mario does have some really great tracks, Banjo combats it with its own majestic musical scores. They are more robust, have more instruments in them, and they're properly themed to each world. Mario has some good tunes, but there are quite a few meh tracks. Banjo's quality of music overall outweighs Mario's, and Mario just doesn't have the quantity to pull it out in the lead. And that's why Banjo has the better music. Well, it's over, and Banjo-Kazooie comes out on top. But hold on there, wipe up those tears and lower those pitchforks, because Mario 64 is still a great game. Banjo won only one more category than Mario did, and it was still a close one. If you really want to look at it a different way, then you could say Mario actually won since it came out first and paved the way for games like Banjo. There's no question that Banjo is similar to Mario, and as they say, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
However, if you really need to find out which game is the best, and for some reason we do, then Banjo-Kazooie is the winner. Its storybook charm, interesting characters, fun minigames, dedication to themes, top-of-the-line music, and huge worlds are just enough to put it on top of the N64 platformers. Thanks for watching today's episode. We chose our favorite kid, now you know how to choose yours.
Well, hey there, you're still here, which means you either like the video or someone has you hostage and is forcing you to watch this. But whatever the reason, you should give the video a like and subscribe to our channel, because it not only helps us out, but you get to know as quick as a stalker when we post a new video. So go ahead and check out our other videos too.